Good afternoon. Can you hear me properly? Hello everyone, I'm Edouard Kopp, John Ecole Junior Foundation Chief Curator of the Menil Drawing Institute. And it's my pleasure to welcome you for this artist talk with Jorinde Voigt. It is the second artist talk for the fall-winter season. And in the next one will be with artist Guerlain, who will deliver a talk at the Menil in the main museum on January 29th. We'd like to thank especially Florence for providing major funding for this artist talk series, as well as the Anchorage Foundation of Texas for generously supporting the Menil public programs this year. And please also join us next week in the main museum for a launch program celebrating the Menil's new publication, Cy Twombly, Treatise of the Veil, 1970, which will take place in the main museum on October 1st at 6 p.m. And additional programs can be found on the Menil website, as well as in our public program guides. And if they're not available now, they will. Oh, you have them already. Excellent, thank you. And before I start speaking with Jorinde, just a few practical matters. So I think we'll talk for about half an hour, and then we'll open the floor for questions. And in the meantime, if you could keep your questions for her until the end, and also silence your cell phones, that would be great. And today's talk coincides with the unveiling of a site-specific wall drawing by Jorinde titled Vertical. And this piece surrounds us, literally. Jorinde's work is the second in an ongoing series of wall drawings created for this space. As an integral part of the Drawing Institute's ambitious program to foster interest in contemporary drawing, we invite confirmed artists with a commitment to the drawing medium to embrace the challenge of monumentality. And Jorinde has been conceiving this piece for the past few months, specifically for the Drawing Institute. And she realized it this week with the help of several assistants who are among us. And the piece will be up for about a year. And I see the opportunity to acknowledge several people who've been instrumental in making this large-scale project happen. First and foremost, the artist, obviously. And we're so grateful that for having her, to have accepted our invitation to come to Houston and do this piece and to meet the challenge, so brilliantly. I also want to thank Kelly Montana, Ken Dorn, David Nolan, and Jorinde's assistants, particularly Adrian Porikis. So the Vertical, this piece, is really an extraordinary work. At the same time, it's a very fragile one, so we'll ask you to be very careful as you move around the space. And we look forward to hearing Jorinde talk about the creative process that went behind this new work, but also about a drawing practice in general. And for starters, I just want to give you some brief biographical details about her. She was born in Frankfurt am Main in 1977, and currently she lives and works in Berlin. And as a child, she studied music, as well as played the cello at a very high level. And she then studied philosophy, German literature, sociology, and eventually went to art school. So she's had a rich cultural and intellectual trajectory, which really attests to her incredible curiosity and ever-searching mind, which also likely explained the multidisciplinary nature of her approach. Since 2004, she's had many, really many, solo exhibitions internationally. In 2012, she won the prestigious Daniel and Florence Guerlain Contemporary Art Foundation Drawing Prize. And since 2014, she's been a professor for conceptual drawing and painting at the Academy of Fine Arts in Munich. And her work is included in major public collections, including the MoMA in New York, the Art Institute of Chicago, the Centre Pompidou, and the British Museum in London. Jorinde has worked across several media, performance, sculpture, but it is fair to say that at this point at least, it is for her works on paper, drawings and prints that she's primarily known. Her drawings are among the most exciting works on paper created today. They tend to be sensual and expressive, as well as deeply conceptual. A complex notational systems are influenced by musical scores, philosophical notions, and scientific diagrams. By that stage in her career, she's already created a substantial oeuvre which is multifaceted and coherent at the same time. Another thing to know about Jorinde is that she's incredibly productive. And just to give you a measure of that, I'm showing you a latest publication called Immersion, which is constituted only with works produced last year and this year, just a measure of how much she's producing. And by the way, this publication and the other one are both available in the Menil bookstore, should you be interested. And a final note before we start discussing a practice, we decided not to have slides so that we can really eventually focus on the piece that surrounds us. So now, turning to you, Jorinde, I had a question about really, when you started off, I understand that you focused a lot on photography and that gradually you moved away from photography towards drawing. And I was curious to know what you found didn't work for you with photography, but what attracted you in the drawing medium.
Actually, this happened in the United States.
It did?
Yes, in Orlando, I think, during a travel. And I was focusing on typical cultural things and taking these photographs. And for each photograph, I thought, this photograph has taken somebody already. And then I decided to just write down the things I saw. So, and in a way also look from above to the situation. And then suddenly I discovered, okay, if you write the parameters down a situation consists out of, then suddenly, and then you can add a timeline, for example, or you can see it as a score, and you can, in a way, document situations which are, if you see it in a musical way, are even repeatable. So, and then when I discovered that, I knew I will be busy my life long.
With drawing.
Yeah, yes.
And as you started to evoke, one of the hallmarks of your practice is that you tend to include handwritten notes and numbers and annotations, which can be a variety of things.
Yeah, it's actually, don't be afraid if there are some numbers. Normally it's only because I'm counting something, the amount of doing a certain action, or if I, not in this piece, but in other pieces, if I name the velocity of something, I say it, for example, in kilometers per hour. It's like actually how we learned it in school. So it's like how easy way to communicate about speed or distances. So I write it in numbers and meters, for example.
So this practice of adding notations to shapes and forms, did you find guides in like artists of the past or the present, or you just came to that own realization that that made sense for you?
I never really had an idol or something, but I was fascinated by artists, of course, many different ones as well, but very strongly Hanne Darboven, for example, and yeah. Also of a conceptual writing and way of notation and what it is also in a pictorial way. And
so obviously, because of your musical background, you were very aware of the act of noting music, which may be one of the most abstract art forms. So that was a kind of...
Yeah, that's what obvious. I brought from music, this kind of writing or writing things in time. Or writing about time as well, a lot. And then, I mean, my main thing where I measure on if something is true or not is the is reality, actually, or my life. Yeah. Nature also.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
And another characteristic of Jorinde's work is that it's highly conceptual. In one way, you have a fascination for systems and structures, algorithms, and but at the same time, what's striking with your work is that while structure is very important in your work, you are very interested in spontaneity, chance perhaps, and also expressiveness, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you come from conceptual art, then there is something around it which has like the aura of objectivity or something. Mm-hmm. And I discovered very soon that this is can never be true, because there is not like a superhuman or an artist is also not like a super or meta human who can see. We are also, I mean, you are just one human as the others. So, as in language, everything exists only individually. So, I took this thing very serious. For example, if I decide on an algorithm, maybe it's too complicated to explain in a talk, but for example, to take the spontaneous as part of an algorithm, it's because there is no neutral objective line if you make a notation, and only the one made in time which is not redoable. That's a very important aspect as well, that it's not, you cannot, when I work on paper with ink, there's nothing which you can erase. It's like in your lifetime, that you cannot redo yesterday or what you just said. And that's a very important thing. And that's why the spontaneous is something for me very real, and also to be okay with what comes out of it. Actually, with this piece, it's the first time that this is like very easy to erase. It's just chalk on the board. So if you go with your hand and do that, it's gone. And I thought, wow, maybe it's also a chance to try something else. But then and especially the right part looked very different 2 days ago. But then I really got in I never did this before, to erase something. And then I really got, I thought, okay, I have to stop this, just continue doing. So
it was a kind of appealing possibility at first, but also a daunting one, because it could be, you could edit yourself endlessly, right?
Yeah, and it also takes your concentration out of the moment. If you're very aware of that it's not removable, mm-hmm. then you are much more, you have a different mind doing your things.
So it's fair to say that a good number of your works, and especially the one that is with us today, visually as well as intellectually challenging, and sometimes they can be, I'm speaking for myself, so challenging that they can be a little overwhelming, and so, but it's exciting. And my question is really what do you make of each spectator's perception of your work? Because they may not know how deeply personal a work is, they may not understand, your language in a way, but still they may be moved by it. And so how valid is everyone's experience of your work?
Yeah, that's what it is about, and it's always an individual experience. It's like, if this is a score for a conductor in music, for example, as a score for a conductor in music, you are always your own orchestra playing that, or you are your own conductor as well. And there is no wrong or right reading it. It's what it's always, if you look at a structure or a work, it's always referring to your existing archive of your experiences and knowledges, and that's very individual, and that's also the exciting thing, that this is that there doesn't exist the same, maybe similar ones if we are in the same culture or have had same experience or similar experiences, but it's very much about to trust trust your own reaction to it. It's not about what I'm telling you or what he's telling you. It's more about what you that you trust your own impression.
I had another question. Mm-hmm. Many of the drawings you make, in a way, argue that drawing can be seen as a kind of autonomous medium. Certainly, you make them for themselves, right? They may not be all finished or advanced, but they are for themselves. And I'm aware that, for instance, at the moment you're working on some sculptural pieces. And my question is the following: do you use drawing to prepare works in other media regularly, or?
No, also, like for that, there is no pre-drawing and no draft doing it. And also for the other things, no, it's just about doing it, deciding on what to do and deciding on the certain actions, which need to be done, and then doing it. Yeah.
So I found a nice quotation from you, and you once said, imagination is the real medium that I use. So I was going to ask you if you could tell us what role you see for the materials you use, meaning the practical materials you use. And I'm asking this because you're known to have worked, you normally work on paper, but you've included slightly unusual materials such as copper, silver, gold, as we see here, but also feathers in your drawing practice. Mm-hmm. And so my question is, in a way, when you think of materials, does the choice of material, is it dictated by your general aesthetic projects, or can the love of a particular, or the curiosity for a particular material incite you to make a work with it?
Normally, if I decide on a topic, then I try also to develop the notation for it and try to find the right materials to express this, because whatever material you use, if it's a pencil or ink or feathers or gold, it's also an information about the topic. So the way how it's written is already information, or the way how it's displayed is already starting to tell you. So it's not about I want to work with gold. It's more I was working with on philosophy, and then I thought it needs to be gold with pencil, because gold, for example, has the characteristics that it's on one hand it has the way how it's applied there as well has a very clear definition where it starts and where it ends. And on the other hand, there is no true angle to look at it. It's not possible, because it's always reflecting, and it looks from each angle, it looks a little bit different. And at the same time, it's very hermetic, so you don't see what it's behind. At the same time, it's very much attracting you, because it has this warm, shiny thing, and you like to see it more close. And at the same time, it's material which also speaks to you in the night. Even if there is no light, or if there's very less light, it's still coming out of the picture. So it's also working in the dark.
Yeah, I came in briefly this morning. It was very early, and there were no lights. The piece was amazing, because all you could see is essentially the gold. So I would urge you to return at different times of the day, different kind of light levels, and the piece is completely different.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you, how did you get the idea of using gold? Did you go to the,
No, it was by thinking about working on this text of It was actually a book on Schopenhauer and philosopher I didn't really like, but somebody gave me the book as a present. It was named The Art of Being Happy, and I was more like in a more funny way thought, okay, was it like a challenge to work on it? And then I just made this experience with myself, what kind of shapes come into my head if I'm reading that. And then I filled the parts which were the most intense ones with gold. And I took the gold because of the reasons I just told 2-3 sentences earlier. And because this is all similar to what philosophy is saying. So, and material has like its own language, but if it's part of the information, it can be a lot which can tell it immediate instead of explaining it. Same with the aspect of the pictorial. So even if you see a pictorial aspects, for me it's still text because it's just it's just faster communicated than a word. Because these are all things where I don't really have words for. That's why I'm trying to find a way of writing about it. I mean, maybe, yeah.
So I remember some months ago when we first invited you to come to the Menil, it was your first visit, and we were standing in front of this wall. By then there was the Ronnie Horn piece, and we looked at it, and we asked you whether you might be interested in the challenge to do a piece, and you kind of paused, and you told us there would be a real challenge for you because of the orientation of the wall, perhaps the size. I don't know if you want to speak to what came through your mind at that time, and what sort of thing you had to resolve to commit to the project.
Yeah, normally I work on the floor, on paper, and it's a totally different situation. It's like working on a topography. It's something totally different. And to work on a wall, it's like confrontation or like an immediate gegenüber, opposition. Mm-hmm. And actually, I don't know if I told you, but my whole summer was like in the sound of doing this wall, like I thought about it all the time.
and you actually had set up your studio in Berlin to
Yes, and it was very funny because this wall topic came up very strongly this summer in my studio, and I said, okay, and I removed the walls I have there. Then in my private situation as well, but I cracked them down, all of them, and then I was okay, and then now okay, what is this going to be? And I'm very happy to what came out of it, because like looking into a cosmos in a way now. So it's it's like going through the wall to both sides. So I'm happy that it turned out like that.
So are we.
Because also people proposed to me, why don't you just smash the walls?
I'm not sure if our director would agree, but I might be more open-minded. But
other artists have done this already, so this was anyway.
And I should tell the audience that so within, barely a few hours or days, she said, yes, of course, I'll do it. And then a week or two later, she said, could I also work on the opposite wall? And we're very happy to say yes, so that you were able to create this immersive experience.
Yeah, it made the challenge even harder, because when I imagined it in Berlin, when I imagined the wall, and I had no solution, and then I turn around and there's another wall. It even made it more intense, the whole thing.
And so in this piece you use mixed media. So we have some gold, some graphite, and essentially chalk. And it's the first time you've used that. Yeah. And so you talked earlier about how it was difficult. So do you think you may use chalk again in your work?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, the idea came because I saw the site Romley, how he used chalk on wall paint on canvas. And when I visited you first and I saw this painting, and this also accompanied me the whole summer, because I was extremely enthusiastic about this piece. Also like a riddle which I wanted to solve, so I always carried it with me. And then, of course, as a German, you think of the Beuys plates, you know, from Joseph Beuys, the boards, which are written in the same way. And then the green came up, the green background came up because for me, the white is not the neutral. For me, more the green, like you have it in nature, is my neutral color. Also, my studio has this color. And also to connect the inside space with the garden situations, which are so beautiful here. And so that's how it started to get set up, right? To decide on the wall color and how to find the right green. It was so nice. It was really nice sending all these colors between Houston and Berlin and deciding.
We sent pots of color to Berlin so that she could exactly have the right, and we had to work on the texture as well, so it would be smooth enough for precise execution, but then would be abrasive enough for the chalk to like sit.
Yeah, and I applied it in my studio and made tests there and looked what's possible with it. And then when I painted my wall in your color in Berlin and used the chalk on it, then I made, okay, now this will be a lot of fun. It's really nice to do it. Yeah.
Often, I mean, I was amazed this week when how you use your whole body to draw.
Sure.
And I don't know if you, and really it makes me think, when I think of your work as a conceptual art, the thing to really emphasize is how performative it is and how much of a bodily experience that is. And I don't know if you could give us even an example in the wall where you inserted your own body in some ways.
I mean, it's all done by hand and one step after the other. But I have to go there to show.
Yeah, you have a laser pointer.
Laser pointer? Oh,
yes.
This is my hand.
Okay.
For example, you see maybe also as these big lines, like this one here, or that one, which like structured, or this you see very good, this one. This was like the very first thing which was on the wall. And more excited, reaching out, you're standing there, and then from the very most left to the right, how far you can reach on that section. So it's a little bit like a slope. Doing trying once your actual measurement. Or what can you reach, where do you end and where do you start thing. Yeah? And then, of course, it's how each, you see the movement as well, and so it's also like a documentation of your energy at the same time, and your, I mean, it tells it by itself. You can read it so easily if you always imagine how is it done, and then you immediately see the action or attitude behind it of each action, and because it's very much about very different kind of doing many. It starts with this big line. Then the second step is to it's about the contact to the wall, but in the sense of as a human, you're always in contact because of gravity. Yeah, and that means also you're always in context. So it's very much about this, because the language, when you say human, it's like something isolated floating around, but we do not exist like that at all. Yeah, and to mark out especially this aspect of the context or the contact. That these are the second white shady things. And for example, you can still see it. This was the left hand. And then in the second step, like just a small, very quick sketch around it, where it was. And this is the reason for the next shape, a little bit to the right, which reflects that as well. So it's already like the next step, reflecting what you did. So, and then it's written as being under rotation, which also means you looking at one thing from all possible sides, and at the same time it says in which chronological order they are done, and it also says today until infinity, which means something, if you imagine it as a like self-fulfilling scope or partitur, it's something which just does this infinite. So you also imagine time at the same time.
So imaginatively, the piece sort of keeps evolving in a way.
Yeah, or it's I mean, it's a mindset in the end. It's something that what you can imagine that this is happening autonomously all the time.
So why can you explain your choice of the title, The Vertical?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Actually, I came here with the concept where I said, okay, I want to work on topics which are located on an axis which goes between center of Earth and intergalactic space. And if you go from the middle of Earth, you go to the magma, and then the parts where you find oil, water, minerals. You go to the part where the humans dig into it and make channels, transitions of fluids and resources, and then you leave the atmosphere and you come into this magnetic field where you see also sometimes the torus shape. It's also called the Van Allen belt. But it's also at the same time, it's also for me, it's very strongly also an archetype, because for me, I used a very long time as a model for perception, because it's a topographic shape where the inside is at the same time the outside. Very interesting mathematical situation as well.
There are these donut shape forms that keep evolving.
And yes, and then you go further and you also have then topics like waves, dust, streaming, and also constellations of many different things and how they find an order. So coming from these aspects, these kind of actions happened here, but there's also, in between is also, of course, the human which you cross, in the middle. And so also these lines which you find there, it's like a line of focusing, of what you also find in breathing or in being concentrated. And in the very end, I took this golden direction going through it, always seemed to be interrupted by the actions which happened. But at the same time, they tell also about itself that it's one long stream, even if they are showed in its own opposite. So we have also this ambulance here, it's naming both things. But it also gives you in a way, a street which invites you to make your own narrative along the whole thing, because that's what you do when you read a not time-based medium. You are free to make your own narrative. So whatever you follow there, you build your own trace and your own story.
So the other night you told me that working on this project was like ascending a huge mountain, and that you've reached
really
the top.
big mountain.
So I'm very curious to know if you have any idea what comes next out of this, or possible avenues, or you're not ready to know or talk about this.
I'm just continuing, but I'm coming from there, so this will also carry me to the next thing, and I will keep some of these elements to go to the next.
Great.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to open questions to the floor. So please, Patrick.
And I have a mic here if you want to raise your hand.
So, welcome, and it's lovely
Thank
work.
you.
And so, I know Edward talked about it earlier, you work on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So for 6 or 8 days, how's your arm?
Oh, I play tennis also every day to practice to be strong enough for that, yeah. No, arm is fine, yeah.
Any other?
If it's possible to turn off the lights for a second.
Ah,
Yeah,
to see the difference, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, all the way.
Kann man das auch ausmachen?
Please.
Did you put the gold on after you had finished, or was what process? When did the gold come?
The very last, very last
Did you
step.
over hash marks where you put the gold, or were they in empty spots? Did you?
No, there's also drawing underneath.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Please.
I have a question. I'd like to hear more about when did you start working on the floor, and why do you do it? I've done it for 20 years, but my back's starting to say no more.
I know.
So I like to hear more about that, because I know.
Actually, I started working on the floor because the table was too small. Yeah, but then I liked it very much because you can work from all sides, which I really love about it. You can go on it, that's very good, and you are not limited in format anymore. Yeah, back doesn't hurt so far. Yeah.
Alison.
Fortunately.
Thank you. I'm struck by the difference between the horizontality of drawing and wall and your interest in the vertical and this concept of an axis from the center of the earth to the universe. So I was wondering if you could describe for us what that duality means to you, and maybe a little bit about your research process when you get interested in something like that axis. Mm-hmm. How do you then explore it more fully from different sources?
Yeah, that's sure. That's the first question what you have after the vertical. What's about the horizontal? And that's also that's immediate. Belongs together. And I mean, if you're busy with researching on perception, the horizontal as well as the vertical are like the very main axis which you use as a human or for orientation. So I think the horizontal comes from looking at the horizon, and the vertical comes from maybe staying upright, but also having the sun as orientation, and the above. And the vertical became, it started maybe 1 year ago that it started to be something so interesting or so clear and was really hard to say how to begin with this. But if you, it's very interesting when I did the research. I mean, also if you imagine this enormous axis, it's also a relief because you get so small. And that's also very much related with doing art. It's because you totally forget yourself in a way, and it's about this, what is happening with you if you go in this kind of consciousness. And at the same time, the vertical axis gives you all the reasons to think about the essential things. And actually, the next project has to be the horizontal, and then I have to combine it.
That should be even more challenging.
But the wall is not big enough.
Sorry. Sorry. Are there any more questions? Yes.
Sorry, I need more time to answer this question, but it will go with me to Berlin.
And you will answer it in your work.
Yeah.
Hi, I was kind of wondering, how did you apply the gold? Is it leafed? Is it painted? Because when I looked at it initially, it almost looks as if it is, the green is wallpaper, and you have almost taken like an X-Acto knife and cut the places where you wanted the gold to be and peeled it back, and the gold is actually under the green.
Oh, this would have been an expensive wall.
Yeah, so how did you get the gold on there?
No, it's actually very easy. It's just a pencil line, like 2 lines, and then I'll show you. For example, this line exists already, this line exists already, and then it's taking a pencil and marking this. Then I do You were asking the question? No. You were asking, it's now about revealing the secrets of the recipe. And then I take a mask film, cut out with a scalpel along the line, rip off this part, then comes some kind of milk. You let it dry for 30 minutes, and then at least, and then you apply the gold with a brush, but from gold leaf. Yeah? And then you remove the complete foil, and then when you cut with the scalpel, this stays.
Oh, there's a question here, Kelly.
Hello. I was hoping you could just talk a little bit about the relationship between the two walls, and for you, what emerges from the relationship between them.
Yeah, I think it's like one. It's also, for me, that it merged into one in a way. Also, when I did this, I also worked at the same time on this one. But because I started there and this was coming later, this is more, you see also it's a little bit different. And but actually it's one.
Jorinde,
Here's a question.
are these, is this erased, or did you work with water? It almost looks like you watered down the chalk.
Yeah, as I told you earlier, on some parts I did this, and actually it went off very well, except the red pigment. You see it sometimes. But I also like that you see it. So you see there happened something before, it's fine.
probably have time for a couple more questions. Please.
How were you influenced is the color on the color of the chalk, the choices of your color, the oranges, the purples, what was the influence behind that?
I brought all colors I could buy in the internet. Yeah, and then I started with white because there's the best contrast. And then I started with the, was heißt das nochmal? The complementary color. Yeah?
Yes, yeah.
So I was orientating on the complementary, which is also a contrast. Yeah, and then from the complementary to the blue in shape of the purple, or to the yellow or pink, so to go both sides. Gave me my. Yeah. But the blue, for example, this is then again a complementary to the yellows and the oranges. But then I went out to the garden, so it's exactly the color of the sky of Houston as well. Yeah.
Okay, my question. How long did it take you to do each wall? And how much did you have to stay behind, like move to the center to see the perspective? Or did you always stay close to the wall?
Sometimes I step back, but I mean, you mean how long it took in time?
Yeah, it's two questions. One is how long did it take you to do one, and then the other one, how many days, hours, how long does it take to do something like this?
Last week. Yeah.
Like a week for each wall?
No, for both.
Both of them, okay. And I just, keep thinking that you will have to step behind, like in the center, to see how you're going. Or you just kept going in there, like not moving to the center of the room so that you can see perspective.
It's a mixture because, for example, doing this, the hands is not about how it looks from behind, it's just doing it again and again and again, and it's the same with other actions, it's just something which looks how it looks, because it's an action, and it's not so much about arranging or something like that, it's more about doing it. Yeah. I had never an imagination how this would look like. I'm totally surprised by myself. Yeah. Never know before.
There's a question.
Did you work from some kind of preparatory drawing, or did you have a sketch that you worked from?
No.
No. Mm-mm. So it was spontaneous as you worked.
Yeah, but some elements like the torus or this donut shape I used already before, and so it's kind of a developed notation, and others I did already similar but developed it further. There's also a very new element in there which I never did before, like these pink, which is like a little bit under wind or something. Looks, yeah. And no, there's only it's more a mindset what you have before, what it is about, or certain things you think about, and to have them clear, and then from there you work.
If I may add, it was really interesting as we worked with Jorinde, as she was sort of trying to tell us how the work was advancing. She shared with us something that she normally doesn't do, an earlier version of the concept, and it was 23 pages long, had some images, many quotations, and many annotations. So, and all in German, of course. Fascinating, but...
of course, there were, didn't talk about that, but of course there's research about topics a lot in front of this, and also I was very busy with topics from Italo Calvino, Invisible Cities, where he talks about cities or only aspects of cities like channels which go to dark lakes under Earth and how to, I was really fascinated by that. And I was also thinking about the situation of Houston, the situation how to get the oil out of the earth, how to get it to the refineries, then also the Houston as the place where you go to space. And it was very interesting what comes together in this city. It's really extraordinary.
So the vertical axis is in Houston.
I imagine it here, yeah. But of course you carry it around with you.
One last question.
Yes, thank you. Have you done anything like that before, or this is the first time that you work on this game? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar. I wasn't familiar with videos. So this is the first that you are working with this type of elements?
No, you see it also in this book. It's similar, but it's of course a different technique, and it's very influenced by. I mean, normally I work with liquid ink and color big papers, and have a heterogenic background and all that. So, but. And then there, for example, this kind of what I call streaming or something, what you see around it. I had this in variations, I used this earlier in my work as well, but never like that, for example. Yeah.
So, Jorinde, thank you so much for sharing with us your thoughts. And again, congratulations on such an amazing achievement. We're so honored that you've done that here, and we're going to cherish it for the next year, and I'm sure many of you will come back. Thank you. Thanks to all of you for coming, and we hope to see you for the next public programs at the Menil. Thank you.
Thank you very much.